What the? The game's already started? Yeah, well, that's kind of the weirdest thing with X-Men 2 here. The weirdest feature about this game is that the game will start right away at level 1. No Sega logo, no tile screen, nothing. As soon as you power on, the game will start you with a random character, and you have to play the opening level. This basically signifies that this level is the game's prologue. But we'll get to that when we get to that. So I'll save the usual introductions till after I clear this stage. I climb up this wall. Luckily, Wolverine is one of the few characters with the wall jump. He has decent horizontal mobility. And he's a powerhouse to boot. But all in all, he's probably the second strongest character, but is the strongest easy character to use. But with that said, hello, I'm Mike Gordon for our 10th game of Christmas. Well, we already saw it. It's X-Men 2 The Clone Wars for the Sega Genesis. Another must-have game for your collection, especially since, from what I heard, this is fairly cheap and affordable to get nowadays. Perfect playthrough conditions are just like last time. We have to beat the game using every playable X-Men in the game at least once. And I plan to use them all at least 3 times. Good morning, Professor X. Explain the anomalies in Siberia. The techno-organic beings known as Phalanx have returned. The ninjas were Phalanx clones, more located in the Sentinel complex. How do we prevent the Phalanx from taking control of the Sentinels? The Sentinels are incomplete and are still vulnerable from the inside. Only one Sentinel is online and connected to the factory's main power grid. Destroying this Sentinel's active coolant core will trigger an overload to the entire complex. That's good. Immediately report all new Phalanx activities. And just like that, we can now select our X-Men. And there will be 21 points over the course of the game that we get to select our targets. And I will be making use of each of these characters at least 3 times. There will also be a 7th character that we will need to unlock, but that will be a mandatory unlock as part of the story. So, between all these characters, they all have their different strengths and weaknesses. So I will be using them based on... so I will be prioritizing on what stages they are good at, and will try to use every character an equal number of times. So who am I gonna use for this opening stage? I'm gonna decide to choose Gambit. Gambit has a few things good going for him for this next stage, which is Sentinel 1. And the first, obviously, are the projectiles, but he also carries a staff, which allows him to attack with a decent hit, with quite the disjoint. His horizontal movement's pretty decent, not the best, but he's probably all around the best character in the game outside of Nightcrawler and Wolverine. Well, at least for this stage. But Nightcrawler and Wolverine are probably the first and second best characters in every stage. Just about every stage. Every once in a while, throw in Beast against a... Every once in a while, throw a Beast in for good measure. Or the mystery 7th character. Now, there is one other condition that we need to achieve in order to complete or achieve a perfect playthrough, but I'll get to that when we get to it. It's not till the very end of the game. So, this is definitely a beginner-friendly level, and Gambit just has so many great tools to deal with it. Second best character would probably have to be... well, besides... okay. Besides Nightcrawler and Wolverine, Gambit's probably the best character used in this stage, and I would probably say Psylocke and Cyclops are the 4th and 5th best, and Beast ranks at the bottom. He's a little slow, and you don't really need his raw strength to deal with a bunch of enemies that you can take down in one hit with just about anybody. But this is basically a stage where you can probably make use of anybody, even the worst character possible, and still do fine. Alright, missed the lift, so I have to wait for this thing to get down. And once the lift comes down, we reach the top, we will be swapping to our next character. So, at this stage, Sentinel 2 is one of the few stages in the game that is very neutral for the entire cast, so I'm gonna use a character that I'm not gonna use too much in this playthrough, and that is Beast. There will be plenty of opportunities for me to use and I want to also not just use each character 3 times, I want to spread out their uses across the game. So, no back-to-back uses between any of these characters. And because this is such a character-neutral stage, there really isn't anybody outside of Nightcrawler or Wolverine that is exceptionally better than anyone else here. I would probably say that disjoints are pretty decent, but just about anybody can attack through the walls and can attack enemies through the floors. Except for Cyclops and, yeah, except Cyclops. Because the character that I will end up using won't matter too much, I decided to use Beast here because there's really only 2 or 3 instances where Beast is worth using in the whole game, and 2 of those instances are literally back-to-back. Since this is a neutral stage that gives me some space between him and his next usage, I decided to just play as Beast now. Yeah, the disjoints aren't as Now, another reason why I use Beast is due to the fact that he technically has a projectile that can help destroy monsters from a great distance. This can actually help in catching the doors opening and shutting. And here is going to be our first use of Nightcrawler in the game. Nightcrawler for this section is simply so much better than every other character that might as well not use him. It's also fairly easy to make use of this character. Nightcrawler's big weakness as a character is, well, 2 of them, is number 1, he is an exceptionally high skilled character. And I should explain what I should am doing first. With Nightcrawler, there are some bosses where you can perform this trick. I like to call it the teleport kick technique. The freeze kick, I would like to call it. What happened was Nightcrawler, if you perform a jump but on your way down, you actually, and then on your way down, you actually perform, a kick routine, then you teleport. What happens is that Nightcrawler's, and then while you mid-teleport, you actually press and hold the kick button. What this does is that freezes Nightcrawler in place, and at a certain angle, he can deal constant damage towards an enemy, towards a boss, while becoming immune to certain attacks in hitboxes altogether. So hit the right angle, you can clear that boss, and Nightcrawler's mobility is really great as well. Teleport's pretty slow, so I only use it to perform cheap-ass tricks like that, or if I absolutely need to for safety. Widespread Phalanx infiltration detected Magneto's asteroid Avalon. What is happening? No acolytes are present, and there are no signs of battle. 94% certainty that Magneto is unaware of their presence. Relay message to Magneto. Eric, you are in danger. You must leave Avalon immediately. I will send the X-Men. Oh, contact broke. Well, that ain't good. Well, the next stage is, I would say, a character with besides Nightcrawler and Wolverine, the best characters to use at this stage has to be characters with a projectile. And I decided to go with, and though he doesn't have the greatest horizontal mobility or mobility in general of any character in the game, he does have a bit of a floaty nature with his forward kicks, where you could just spam them over and over again to make it over pits and other dangerous obstacles. This makes Cyclops a bit floaty compared to other characters with the forward kick, and just like that, I'm done. So next character I'm going to use is Psylocke. She has great forward mobility and can deal with some of these trickier enemies in one hit thanks to her mutant power, which I think is called the Kinetic Knife, I think is what it's called. And she also has a disjoint to help deal with enemies from these weird corners, and adds us protections in case she's surrounded. The downside is she does not have a projectile, so stages where projectile... So she's great when projectiles aren't going to be that big a help to you, but you need to... But you still need to deal with characters in very tricky corners. And has a lot of horizontal mobility. As per usual, Nightcrawler and Wolverine are probably the best characters to use in this stage. Especially since Nightcrawler can use the same technique as last time to cheese this boss. However, this boss is very, very easy and does not require cheesing. And the next stage is another neutral stage, and since Gambit doesn't see much use later on in the game, I'm going to use him again here. Technically, you could make an argument that for speed's sake, Nightcrawler and Beast are the best characters to use here. But I think what matters is having a disjoint and having a projectile allows me to flip the switches super fast. And it's just a matter of me dodging these lasers and those mines. So yeah, but otherwise every single character in the game can do just fine in this stage. So the next couple stages, the best characters to use will be Wolverine and Beast. And generally, when you have to choose between Wolverine and Beast, general rule of thumb is that Wolverine is the best character to use because he is so much faster, has great frame data, etc. And if you have Yellow Bar, he deals the same amount of damage as Beast, who is otherwise the strongest character in the game. Beast will always deal max damage regardless of his health. So if you're down on health, Beast is the better option than Wolverine. Here, I don't really care much about my choice here, so I'm just gonna use Beast. And then do Wolverine in the next stage. Especially since there aren't very many Beast stages left to use. Actually, there's only one more Beast stage. That's one more stage left in the game where Beast is worth using. Well, maybe two. So now we have to save, since I used Beast last time, I'm going to use Wolverine here, and this is why I chose Wolverine. as Wolverine's mobility is so much better in the fight against Magneto than Beast's raw power. This frame data makes Wolverine far more valuable here than he is in the previous stage. And just like that, we've taken out Magneto, which is kind of ironic. You'd think Wolverine would be the worst character to go up against Magneto, but not here in this game. Now that Magneto realizes that his acolytes have been abducted and cloned by the Phalanx, he has joined our cause. We must take the offensive. What is their next target? The Phalanx are infiltrating Apocalypse's computers. 44% simulation complete and ray transformation increasing. The computer's antiviral defenses have been shut down by Apocalypse. He's allowing the simulation to occur. Unit guards his fortress as the simulation continues. Alright, so for the first part of the stage, we're just going to use Nightcrawler because when it's abundantly clear that Nightcrawler is so far away better than everyone else, I'm going to use him. And the reason why I don't use Nightcrawler, he is too much, is A, he's super cheap and easy to exploit, and B, his biggest downside is that he requires a ton of skill to pull off. Here though, this is a pretty low skill section. Just teleporting up here to these sturdy blocks, and we go teleport up here. Jump up, straight up, teleport down. Just like that. Rinse and repeat until he dies. And now, Nightcrawler also does well in the next stage, but this is really our last serious chance to make use of Gambit. After this stage, Gambit does not actually start to drop off spectacularly. And the reason for this is because Gambit lacks several features that will be important later on. He doesn't have a wall jump. He has decent aerial mobility, but it's not great. He's actually faster on the ground. It's so weird. You'd think Gambit, who looks like one of the most athletic mutants in the X-Men, would be able to wall jump, but he can't. Or have like a super jump. But again, he can't. His super jump's not much better than anybody else's, really. And the reason why I deal with Gambit, it helps him deal with the enemies that are from a great distance. It helps. He has some counterattacks from enemies that might be in a gimping situation, or from like a weird, awkward corner. So, otherwise I would say Nightcrawler's the best because he can get past those temples super fast, but at this point I would consider that a sequence break. What I did with Nightcrawler in the previous stage was not a sequence break. It's just making use of some high-tech skills in order to get to where I want to go a lot faster. I'm literally using what the developers intended in order to cheese through the previous stage. So yeah, Gambit's pretty decent with crowd control here. Has so many crowd control techniques he can make use of, but he's gonna absolutely get outclassed by other characters with similar kits, like Magneto, Psylocke, and oh yeah, I forgot, Magneto has joined our party, and this will be our first time to use him. Like Magneto, Psylocke, and even Cyclops, actually. And Head and Shoulder Magneto is the best character to use in this game, and this is due to his mutant abilities. Now, Magneto is the only character in the game not to have a melee attack, as his A and B buttons both are his mutant powers. This stage we will be using his B attack, which allows us to shoot out a projectile. And we hover up here in order to avoid these obstacles. But we also do this in order to essentially gimp Apocalypse in an endless loop so we can defeat him super quickly, and well, not super quickly, but efficiently. I think otherwise the best characters to use would be Beast and Wolverine, due to their anti-boss strats. Nightcrawler's teleport can help out as well, but the other characters don't really do well here. At least not that well. Psylocke is probably the worst performer since the disjoint isn't super important. In fact, straight up, Psylocke is probably the worst boss character to use against boss fights. So, I literally just time Magneto's attacks so that the second Apocalypse raises his fists up in the air, I shoot him and the attack will connect. And I can use this to loop him over and over until I defeat him. Apocalypse is supposed to be one of the strongest characters in the X-Men franchise. Like, he's literally a god tier character in the Marvel universe. And yet, in both X-Men games that he's featured in, he's such a pushover. That's easy to loop endlessly. Alright, we've beaten him, so all we have to do now is drop down on this platform to escape. Apocalypse's Phalanx infested computer has been rendered useless, and Apocalypse himself has fled. A cluster of Phalanx are located in the Savage Land. The simulation effort is headed by a Phalanx clone based in Brainchild's chamber. Stop the master clone, and the inhabitants will prevail over the leader colony. Alright, so this is where, similar to Avalon 2, this is probably another stage where Psylocke absolutely excels. She has great horizontal movement, she's a small enough target, and she's got great disjoints. This literally allows her to navigate the obstacles of the stage super well. In fact, only Nightcrawler does the stage better than her. Straight up. And Wolverine is probably the third best character used in this stage. Now, who would be the next best characters? Well, honestly, I would say Gambit would be number 4, Cyclops number 5. Cyclops' floatiness isn't really all that useful in this stage, and I would say, I don't know, between Beast and Magneto. Magneto is a huge target, though. So I'd say that he's probably the worst character to use in the stage. But I don't know, it's pretty close between those two. Literally, the one drawback that Psylocke has is that her melee attacks are significantly weaker than Wolverine's or Beast's. But her mutant power should be able to close the distance, and it has. So this stage is barely a neutral, but this favors projectile uses. Again, Magneto isn't super useful because he's too big a target, and there aren't that many targets on screen to make use of his abilities. So I chose to go with Cyclops because he's He's a projectile user who doesn't see a whole lot of action the rest of the way. There's literally only one other stage where Cyclops is actually useful. And we'll actually get to that when we get to that. Alright, and easy peasy. So, there are two characters. So, Nightcrawler absolutely trounces the next two stages, but since there's no boss feature in them, I'm gonna not use them at all. So I'm gonna make use of Wolverine and Magneto, who actually do pretty well in these stages. Obviously, for this stage, there isn't a whole lot of emphasis in crowd control, so I would say a powerhouse like Wolverine and Beast absolutely does well here. And then after that, aside for Nightcrawler, so Wolverine's 2, Beast 3. I would say 4 is Gambit due to his disjoints. Cyclops is number 5 due to his projectile and floaty nature. Magneto is also floaty, but is a huge target. And finally, we have Psylocke, who's probably the worst character here. So, I'm gonna use Magneto here because... Now, I don't show this off, but had I realized that just use his mutant power while he's grounded, and I would have just torched this stage effortlessly. But instead, everything just came difficult. You see, my first exposure to Magneto's mutant power was while in the air. And Magneto is the only character that uses 2 different mutant powers, and I don't really make use of his other one. Actually, he has 3 because he has no melee attacks. He shoots his projectiles, which deals chip damage even at yellow bar. What I should be doing is stay on the ground and fire a magnetic bomb, which will just torch every enemy. In the air, his mutant power is the power to levitate. But on the ground, he can fire these. He can basically fire a nuke that destroys every enemy on the screen, and even a bit beyond the screen. So, very, very great for crowd control. There's actually only one more stage where Magneto will be super useful. Well, technically there are like 3 or 4 other stages, but other characters do just as well, if not better than him. And I want to space out my usage. And I used the bomb by mistake here because I was trying to hesitate, and I used the bomb by mistake. Again, if I just known better, I would just fire the bomb and just took care of everything. So yeah, this was definitely on me. I should have known to just stay on the ground to fire the bomb. I didn't know that. This was basically my first time playing this game. And I literally needed to look up a walkthrough just to figure out the controls for this game. But it's all coming to an end soon anyways. Magneto does pretty well in next stage, but there's 2 characters that do even better. One of them is actually the only level in the game where Beast ranks number 1 in. So much so that even at yellow bar, speedrunners will use Beast in this next boss fight, which is the Master Brain. And this will be our last use of Beast in the entire run. absolutely tears through bosses, and he doesn't care if he takes damage because he will be able to replenish his health just fine. That's it for this boss. Blink and you miss it. Bye-bye, beast. The struggle seems endless. How do we put a stop to them? Look at the top of the Phalanx ship. Beyond the cloning factory is an enormous Phalanx entity which houses the central consciousness in the entire community. Destroy the Nexus and the clones will cease to exist. Alright, the final batch of levels in the entire game is coming up. Are there any other dangers the X-Men must be made aware of? The clone factory is capable of duplicating any being in close proximity of its sensor arrays. Prepare the Blackbird for immediate departure. The final battle is about to commence. And we will be using the remaining 5 mutants for the final time, starting with Nightcrawler. And it's so weird that Nightcrawler follows up Beast in every single possible instance, but that's just coincidence. Nightcrawler has a number of techniques that make him heads and shoulders the best character I use in this game. However, Magneto is also pretty decent here. It would have been my second pick. Third pick would probably be Wolverine. Fourth would probably be Gambit due to his disjoints and projectile uses. Cyclops is useful after that, and then Psylocke. Beast is probably the least useful here. And the reason for this is because Beast does not do very well against crowded stages where he has to deal with a bunch of shit at the same time. He gets bullied super easily. Oh god, phone. It's a spam number. That much I do know, so I'm gonna ignore that. And I just have... But even though Nightcrawler doesn't deal a ton of damage, his teleport and his movements overall just makes it so he can just tank this entire stage. Alright, I must have replenished my health already. So I can literally skip huge chunks of the level, and it's not a sequence break! Now, similar to the first boss fight that I used Nightcrawler in, I'm gonna use the freeze kick technique or a cycle through. However, count to about 10 seconds and then break out of it. The boss will not end unless you end it yourself, so count to 10. This is the last use that for Cyclops that we will have. There isn't too much crowd control here because the most amount of enemies you have to worry about at a time is 2 or 3. It depends on how fast your reflexes are. Generally, this is the last neutral level in the game because every single character does well here. However, this stage does favor the projectile users like Cyclops, Gambit, and Magneto. So if you need to use them a third time, any of these characters a third time, now's the chance to do it. Because Cyclops falls off hard in the final 3 stages, I decided to use him here and now. Just to shoot down these planes. And this will last for about 2 minutes before the boss shows up. Now the downside of using Cyclops or Gambit or Magneto is that you won't be able to won't be able to force shot the boss. But you know what? It's a small price to pay since this is more of a strat for convenience rather than a speedrun strat. This whole stage is pretty automatic anyway, so speed doesn't matter that much. Just efficiency. But if you were speedrunning, yeah, Wolverine is probably the best character to use here. Yeah, I just finished her off in 5 hits, so that's it for Cyclops. We just have one more Psylocke, one more Magneto, and one more Wolverine left to use. And this is a stage that Psylocke does not greatly excel in, but she does fine. She has decent crowd control with her aerials, and she has great horizontal movements. However, there are a lot of projectile users, so I would not at all fault you for using Cyclops, Gambit, or Magneto here. Heck, Wolverine even, because at yellow health, Wolverine can one-shot anything. So when I say that's... So Psylocke is probably the 4th best character. I would say... Actually, 4th or 5th. I would say altogether... Nightcrawler is still the best character here. Then Wolverine. Because of course they are. But she's right dab in the middle. But I have a better use for Magneto in the next stage. I cannot use Magneto in the last stage at all. In order to have a perfect playthrough of this game, you cannot use Magneto in the last stage. But honestly, I do think this stage fits Psylocke's toolkit better than the next stage. So that's why I saved her for here. So yeah, that's basically my strategy. Use my immune powers on enemies that are extremely sturdy. Otherwise, use the spin attack for crowd control. And yeah, apparently the Phalanx are like an alien bug race that can literally clone mutant abilities. However, they have metallic properties, which is why they are critically weak to Magneto. And we're done with Psylocke. And now the last use of Magneto in the entire run. Again, we cannot, and we bring him not for the floating nature, but for his bomb. He's pretty good in this stage, and this is literally the labyrinthine stage with a ton of different screen changes. So I'm just firing so I don't drop down completely blind, and yeah. Alright, I was screwing up back there, but I think it all worked out for me in the end. I have no idea what that was about. So this was probably and since a character like Gambit could probably have come in handy. But Magneto's floating ability to levitate literally allows me to protect myself from drop down, from getting ambushed by enemies from down below. So see how Magneto just absolutely crushes all these enemies in super tricky situations? This is what I should have been doing during during Savage Lands 4, which is also called Ancient Temple 4, aka Ancient Temple 2. So yeah. Alright, I can't make the same mistake in just attacking him while the bomb's charging. Roll the wise, don't do that. These guys are super sturdy. Yeah, I told you Magneto's a huge target. But yeah, the appeal is you finally got to play as Magneto in an X-Men game, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, I knew there were some enemies about to ambush me, so... So the only reason why you should ever fire your projectile while using the bomb technique is for the purposes of self-defense. If you're just trying to kill the enemy, just let the bomb take its course take them out for you. And we're near the end of the line here. Yeah, I knew there was something over there, so we dropped down for like the 5th time already. I think this is the 5th time. Is it? I think this was the 5th time, so yeah, we're near the end of this stage, and another reason, Magneto in theory would be great in the next, would be amazing in the next stage, but in practice, he's actually the worst character you want to use, especially if you're gunning for a perfect playthrough. If you're gunning for a perfect playthrough, you absolutely need to use a melee fighter, and Magneto has no melee attacks at all. Even so, this next condition requires defeating the clone fighter of your playable character, and mixed with not having a melee attack, basically means that Magneto cannot achieve a perfect playthrough in the last level. So who's the best character? Wolverine, of course. Because this is a boss gauntlet, and Wolverine has terrific is super fast and has terrific frame data. So as long as I hold on to yellow health, I should be great. This section is basically all automatic. Now, there's a technique I looked online for speedrunning. I swipe away, and then follow up by swiping away twice after he backs up. Basically what happens is, I swipe towards the door as it's about to break. As it's breaking on the way down, so I deal free damage. Then after as he backs away, I perform his mutant attack twice in a row. Spoiler, Wolverine and Beast's mutant attacks are also secondary melee attacks. So I'm going to quickly one-shot these guys, and then I'm going to make my way up the left-hand side, because now we have to battle the Phalanx clones of all the X-Men. Now, perfect playthrough conditions here is where they come into effect. There is a Magneto clone that we can dispatch as well, but it's completely optional and can only be achieved if you fulfill the following criteria. Now, criteria number 1 is you have to defeat your clone fighter, which is Clone Wolverine here, with the clone of your own playable fighter, using a melee attack. Because Magneto's Phalanx clone cannot be replicated until you defeat a clone fighter, your own character's clone. In this gambit, I mostly just target his backside. I wait till he turns around before attacking him again, and then follow it with rapid fires. And our next target is Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler has really long disjoints, and he's tall. So this is one of the few instances where I purposefully take damage in order to get through him. My recommendation is, but don't worry, we will be able to pick up some health packs soon. And with Cyclops also has something of a weird disjoint with his melee attacks, so I wait till he performs his punch twice before ganging up on him. After the second punch, when he's staying back up, he tries to go into retreat mode, and that's when I just bulldoze him. Now I got a health pack. You attack that wall to get that smiley face. That's the second condition. And we will be battling a Magneto clone soon enough. So, all you have to do is battle the clones of each of the six core X-Men. But this is the only way you can battle Magneto. Now with Beast, I literally decide to attack him while I'm with a quick hop. And I use the mutant ability while heading down. And then quickly do it the 4th time so I could get that last hit in before he disappears. Final condition, we hit that wall. I actually use similar technique, a mix of Beast and Cyclops techniques, since Magneto goes into retreat after 2 hits. But I took damage here, so I can't afford to take another hit or else Wolverine will get nerfed. So for this last battle, I will be going the upward mobility so I could get out of range for his attacks, and that's it, we've beaten the game! And we achieved a perfect playthrough because we used every mutant at least 3 times, with the clone factory demolished and their strongest clone incarnation vanquished, the Phalanx become fearful for their survival and quickly end their assault. In a violent rage, or possibly in a well-timed, premeditated performance, Magneto threatens to destroy the entire ship in Earth's defense. The Phalanx consciousness fears to release the imprisoned mutants and to never return to Earth in exchange for a peaceful departure. This agreed, the X-Men returned to the Blackbird. The trip back to Earth is silent. There are no smiles, no congratulations, just an uneasy quiet. Each X-Men realizes how close the battle was and how easily the fight could have gone against them, especially if not for Magneto's assistance. They also know that once they are home, their partnership with Magneto will no longer exist. Cyclops struggles to find words that will preserve this important alliance, but knows the effort is futile, as it has been numerous times in the past. In frustration, he dismisses the thought. He walks towards Magneto, who sits alone, staring out a window. Magneto, would you have destroyed the ship with us aboard? Magneto does not acknowledge the question. Enraged, Scott says, so you'd sacrifice our lives so easily. Magneto turns pinning Cyclops with his gaze. That I did not destroy the ship outright should be answer enough. Do not take such a judgmental attitude with me, Cyclops. If our positions were switched, would you have considered saving me if it meant failure? Would you have even opted to save the lives of your friends? Images of the X-Men flash through his mind. He stands, hesitant, one by one. Scott senses each X-Men take their place behind him, offering their unspoken support. If ever the choice needed to be made, he knows they would do what is necessary to preserve their dream. A dream of peaceful coexistence between all of humanity. A dream whose greatest champions are the X-Men. Alright, that's X-Men 2 in the books. Perfect playthrough conditions? Beat the game using all 7 possible playable characters, and I did so at least 3 times. And I have beaten Phalanx Magneto, who is an optional secret boss fight. And I did so, and as such, I've accomplished everything this game has to offer, and man, this game was such a kick-ass title. I absolutely adore it. Is it one of my top 10 greatest Sega Genesis games of all time? Who can say? But I do think this game blows the original X-Men for the Genesis out of the water by a wide margin. But we still have 2 more games of Christmas left to cover before our countdown to 100 is finally complete. I saved the best for last, so stay tuned for our next entries. Leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel. I greatly appreciate it. With all out of the way, this is Mike Gordon, sign out.